Hey guys, in this episode we are going to be looking at 27 of Charlie Kirk's controversial or viral moments, and we're going to be assessing whether or not these are truly controversial moments on various topics, or is this pointing to Charlie Kirk just being honest and telling the truth. So the first clip that we have up is sex-selective abortion.
She's having a girl,
Okay.
but she wants a boy. Should she be able to abort that 3-week-old?
Yes. If the baby is going to be born to a mother who's like, well, dang it, my kid's not a girl, it's a boy, or vice versa, then I don't even think they should be born to that parent in the first place.
It is grotesquely illegal what you are talking about, which is selective abortion. Basically where you get a DNA result at 3 weeks. No, not the hair color I like, terminated. Not, I wanted a boy. By the way, you could tell a lot of your baby's DNA test now. How tall it's gonna be, its average IQ, brown eyes, green eyes, blue eyes, whether it's gonna be likely overweight, obese. So if you get anything that you don't like, you say, my body, my choice, get it out of the shopping cart.
I think this is a really valid take from Charlie Kirk. So as you know, there is this process in IVF where you can pick some of your child's traits. And on the opposite end, we do have parents who have gender revealed, and they are sometimes either one parent or both parents are upset that their child is not the gender that they want. And so you do have that general disappointment if you're in this situation that this girl is talking about. And I do think that that is sad and unfortunate for the child to be born to a parent who can't get over that, and ideally the parent would just love the kid anyway, even though they have that initial disappointment. But that's why you try again so that you can eventually get the gender that you want. But at the same time, you should obviously be treating all of your kids equally and loving them equally. You shouldn't love your child less because it's not the right gender. But I can see this obsession with wanting a kid who is the right gender, whether that's male or female, or just wanting a child who has all of the perfect characteristics so that in whatever capacity the parent thinks that they might be better received by society or more successful in life because they have certain traits. And so I do think that that is unfortunate, but I agree with what Kirk is saying here in that she is saying that you should not be able to do this and that this is illegal. Okay, so moving on to the second clip, we have a clip on Black fathers.
A precious angel of yours deserves to have a father around. You know, for daughters and for sons, it's different things. For a daughter, that's a father figure to look up to say that is how a man should act, and someone that I ought to one day marry, someone that will protect me from a vicious world, and someone that makes me understand what strength and not brutality looks like, what justice but not revenge looks like. To have a father figure is a silent way of forming a child to be a mature citizen. And unfortunately, as we remove dads from families,
so I want to pause it here. I do love the way that Charlie interacts with the child when she's babbling into the mic, and so it shows that he is a human and interacting with the people that he is talking to. He's not just talking at them or belittling them. And then I love that he's talking about the importance of the father in the home and how the father is setting a example for the daughter, especially on how a man should act and how she should expect to be treated. And that only works when, one, you have fathers in the home, but then you also have fathers who are doing the right thing and making good decisions.
Assistance, all of that should be about incentivizing the dad staying around, not the dad leaving. Unfortunately, with welfare, you can get more money for single mother assistance.
Okay, I want to pause it here because he brought up welfare. So we know that welfare has been incentivizing people to not keep the father around. Otherwise, that hurts the money they can get from the government. But on the flip side, we've seen men being put on child support and how that has sometimes hurt them in terms of their living situations, because if they're getting half of their paycheck taken out, they're contributing to their child's well-being, but then also they're living on half a paycheck. And when you are married to a woman, it's not always like that. If you're the only one working, then I can see kind of like you're using your money for all of the family needs and all of that stuff. But then if you have two parents working, you're both contributing to the child, and it's not in this way where the dad is just living on one check. And so that can create resentment too. And I know that some women do not put men on child support for that reason, but the dad still continues. And so you do have this interesting setup where you have welfare, no dad around, child support, and then then it just makes the dad's life difficult. But obviously, either way, I think the dad should be in the home, ideally married to the woman, and contributing to the raising of the children and creating a positive family environment for the children.
And so you agree, we're actually subsidizing single motherhood more than we are subsidizing family formation. The number one objective of any social welfare program should be, how do we keep the family together and put dads back in the family? That is the number one priority.
Yeah, so I agree with everything that he's saying there. Dads should be in the home, and we need to figure out how to get dads back in the home when they've been removed due to the prison pipeline and all of this other stuff, gang violence, and then just not wanting to be around. We need to motivate dads to consistently be involved in their children's lives, and that's much easier when you're married to the woman and all of your children are in one household. They're not having to go back and forth. You're not barely seeing them and all of that stuff. Moving on, let's play the next clip. This is on DEI, didn't earn it.
Well, this is about to get good.
Well, instead of debating DEI, why don't you define it?
Got you. So diversity, equity, and inclusion.
I know what that means.
Okay, my fault.
I would say DEI stands for didn't earn it.
Ooh, didn't earn it. You've been working on it? I honestly believe that.
I like how the guy is trolling him. Oh, didn't earn it? You've been working on that? That's kind of funny.
The fact that you got to this point where you was already unrepresented on these campuses already shows that you did actually earn to get those fundings, did actually earn to get that exclusivity tailored to you.
Let's try to find some common ground.
Okay.
Do you think people should be hired based on their race or their competency?
I don't think that. I think they should be race.
Which one?
My fault.
Yeah.
Sorry. My fault. I think that they should be hired based on their competency, not their race.
We totally agree, right?
Okay.
So what DEI does in practice, not in theory, is it focuses on race more than competence. And
Okay.
That is.
I'm going to pause it here because I really love that he shifts the conversation to focus on what they agree on instead of their differences, because a lot of people will just focus on the differences and there's always going to be that divide that doesn't necessarily need to be there. So I really like that this is the approach that he took with this conversation to try to find common ground.
That is our concern.
Okay.
And so what I want, and you seem, very passionate about a lot of things, and you obviously have skills. For your life, I want you always to be judged on the content of your character, not the color of your skin. Where DEI says, no, we're actually going to care more about skin color than competency. And so what we want is an America based on merit, America based on how hard you work, an America based on what you bring to the table, not just what you look like.
So I absolutely agree with it. We should be judged based on our merit and what we can physically do, not our skin color. And that echoes MLK, where he said that he wanted people to be judged on the content of their character rather than their race or their skin color. And so I think that is a valid stance to have. And so I don't know why he's getting flack for that, especially when he framed it in that way. But I can also understand the perception or the idea that because you're black, you may not get certain opportunities, or the opportunities won't turn out the way that they would for somebody else. And so there's another guy who's going to kind of talk about that, but I do agree with the general assessment that you should be judged based on merit instead of your skin color, because you wouldn't want the reverse to happen to where you're negatively judged by your skin color versus being praised or awarded for your skin color. Moving on, the next clip is great family or great career.
Or great family or great career?
Family.
Great family. You should want to meet your future husband that will be able to make enough money that you can quit. That would be my advice. My number one thing I'm obsessed about. I want to live in a country.
Let me pause it here. I'm a little late in pausing it, but I've seen this echoed a lot where like Nick Fuentes, Andrew Tate will say like, hey, get rich, make as much money as you can, because ideally what you want to be able to do is work and make enough money that when you get married, your wife doesn't have to work. And if she does work, it's her money, whatever, right? Like you can provide for the family. As a man, I think you don't want to be in that situation where your wife has to work and she has to help contribute to the bills. But if you marry a woman who is okay with that and wants that, I think that's fine. But it's different when you are marrying a woman who wants to stay home and who wants to raise the children, and you are the one who is responsible for financially providing for the family, and it's a little bit stressful because you're not making enough money. And so men should really want to make as much money as they can so that their wives and their family can be in this position that the wife doesn't have to work, because that just creates a better family environment and better family life because you remove that stress from the mom and she can focus on raising the kid. Now, if the mom does want to work, whatever, right? But I think ideally the man should always strive to be able to provide that, regardless of whether or not the woman actually wants that.
If a woman does not want to go to work having to have a kid, she does not have to go to work and she could stay at home and raise those kids. Honestly, it's much more important for you to raise your 6-month-old baby than crunching numbers on a spreadsheet for some company that doesn't even know your name. In 1980s, a father working was able to support an entire family. Now things are so expensive, homes are out of reach, inflation has crushed us. Both the man and the woman have to go into the workforce. That is bad. It is bad for everybody. It creates strain.
I want to pause it here because a lot of people have said that this is due to feminism and the idea that women need to be independent. They should be able to work and do things on their own. And as a result, that has resulted in an economy where both parents have to work in order to pay the bills and take care of the family finances and all of that stuff, right? It used to be just one income. Now it's two. And it's really because of the economy, but also that structure of both parents wanting to work and then now needing to work.
Dangers raising our kids, and also it creates women that have to go into the workforce that are unhappy in their job because they'd rather have their 6-month-old baby in their arms.
Okay, so that's that clip. We're going to move on to another clip on Black culture.
Right, so when segregation ended, right, black people, or when slavery ended, actually, black people were just forced wherever, right, so they had nowhere to go. And then there was laws put in place to put them into prison, and after...
It's okay. No. What's your name? Guys, what's your name?
Jackson.
It takes a lot of courage to come up here.
Yeah, no,
Let's just take a deep breath. Okay, I'm not here to pick on you.
No,
and I appreciate it. No, it's okay. I know this can be very intimidating getting a crowd like this. So just...
I'm going to pause it here because I really like that he's talking to this guy in a kind of big brother type of way. He's not belittling him. He's not picking on him. Obviously, the guy is nervous and he recognizes that. There is this thing that Charlie Kirk does when people are talking. He's kind of looking around and stuff like that. And I don't know why he does that because it does give off the impression that he's not paying attention. But obviously he is. And he's able to recognize, hey, this guy's nervous. Let me say something. Let me make it easier for him and help him out so that we can actually have this debate and this conversation.
Take a deep breath. Let me make your argument. I'm going to make your argument for you, and I'm going to tell you why I think it's wrong. Okay?
Okay, yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the argument that is being made, that you want to make, is that there's legacies of injustice.
Yes.
And that those legacies impact one generation after the other, and when those things get handed down, you have what is a system or a systemic issue that isn't just isolated in 2024. So the argument that you're making is that what happened in 1954 does impact 2024 of decade after decade after decade. Let me tell you my response to that. Of course, there is some truth to that. However, every culture, every person in this audience can point to issues that families or generations prior had that were able to overcome. So the question is, why is it that Black America is one of the only populations, that and Native American populations, that have not been able to overcome such evil, horrors, and injustices?
Okay, I'm going to pause it here because I think this is where a lot of people are saying that the racism is coming in, because he's pointing the finger and saying, hey, you guys, everybody else has been doing so well. What's the problem? Why can't you do it? And I do think that he is, one, really shining a spotlight on that issue, but I also think he's doing it from a place of wanting to fix the issue and address it, because he could easily just ignore it and pretend it's not happening and say, hey, not my business, not my problem, that sort of thing. And he is really good at having these conversations and really trying to drive home his point and at least get people talking about these issues and discussing it in a way where there's actual discussion instead of just finger pointing, name calling, and all of that stuff.
Here's my perspective, and I want to hear what you have to say, is that the number one way to keep people out of poverty, lower the crime rate, and have a better society is whether or not you have a mom and a dad around. Would we agree that's an ideal? Yeah? Cool.
Yeah.
So what happened in 1964 is that 25% of Black youth were raised by a single mom. Today, it's nearly 75%, about 70%.
Okay, I want to pause it here because I didn't initially pay attention to these numbers that he's reporting, and it turns out that it's actually, as of 2023, that number of kind of kids in single parent homes, just the mom, is about 47%, 50%, something like that. It's not as high as 70% or 75%. However, in terms of unwed mothers, the percentage is 72. And so there is this distinction that people are making, that there's a difference between unwed mothers in the Black community who are having children, and then also children who do not have a dad around because he's not living with them and then he's not involved at all. These are two different things.
That means that 1 in 4 black kids will have a father around. Only 1 in 4. That's the number one issue happening in the country, and it's not because of systemic racism. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
Okay, so I think I misjudged you at first. Like, when you brought up the 1350 stat, I had just assumed that it was inherently eugenics based, kind of. So, and that's where mine came from. I think we are on the same page that we know what the problem is, and that's what I mean.
No,
the
and
education.
thank you for saying that, because I think we have.
I want to pause it here because I'm not really 100% sure what he means by the eugenics part of that answer that he gave, but let me know if you know in the comment section.
Actually have a lot more in common in this country than the media would ever believe.
No, definitely, right? And what my point was, I was trying to say is, I don't think that we're doing enough to help these black communities catch up. Whereas they're underfunded and they're not, and they're over policed, and there's just these factors that are contributing to, like you said, these single parent households.
Yeah, so we're not going to agree on this. This is where we'll disagree, and that's okay. I have more of a view of Thomas Sowell on this, where he believes it's far more about culture, values, and worldview than stuff and over-policing.
I want to pause it here because what I find very interesting is because people are saying, hey, Charlie Kirk is a racist, but I saw a post or an article where it was basically saying that Charlie Kirk is basically saying the stuff that Black conservatives were saying, that Black people were saying about the Black experience and Black culture. And so they were basically saying it's not this white guy making up stuff, it's other people who have noticed this as well and have commented and said the same things that he's saying, and for that he's being called a racist when other Black people have said the same thing. And so I do find that interesting, and obviously you can receive it differently depending on who's saying it. Like if it's the Black person saying it, you may receive it differently versus a white person saying it. And so I do think it is good that he is wanting to have this conversation, because a lot of people would be scared to have this conversation because they don't want to be called a racist, and Charlie Kirk is in the best position for that because he has his own company and he's not really going to be punished in the same way in terms of being canceled by the Black community for having this conversation. But I do want to acknowledge that obviously he has passed away and he is getting a lot of support from the Black community. There are some people who do believe that he is racist, but a lot of people are saying that, one, because they haven't heard his clips in its full context, and then they either haven't heard the clip at all. And so I think when people get more information into the things that he said and the full context, they may change their mind, they may not, but I do want to make this video to address that and help further the conversation on what exactly he means when he makes these comments. But I did think that it's interesting that he is quoting or referring to Black people who are pointing out the same kind of solution or problems that they think is something that needs to be addressed in the Black community.
Okay, but I think we can ask a question, and I want your opinion. Why is it that the single motherhood rate in Black America went from 25% to 75% over 50 years, where America did become less racist?
Why did it?
Yeah, so what caused Black America to go from one of the strongest nuclear family communities in the country to now the weakest by far?
I can't answer your question.
No, that's okay. No, that's great. And again, it's hard to get up and have these conversations. Here's my opinion. My opinion is that, yes, there was some social welfare that subsidized single motherhood, which means it's easier to get cash from the government if you say you are single than if you are married. I think we can agree that's stupid. That shouldn't happen, right? But I would love your perspective on this. Do you think in Black culture, getting married and staying with one woman for your entire life is elevated and celebrated?
No.
So obviously the answer to this is no, and we know that that is true because this is where the whole baby mama culture comes in, where you have women who are not married to the person that they are having a child with, and then that man may have multiple baby mamas, and so what that leads to is multiple households where the father is not consistently there, meaning that he is not living there. He obviously, if he's involved in his children's lives, he would have to bounce back and forth between 2 or 3 homes or however many homes because the kids are not all with one woman.
At all.
I think that's the problem.
I think the problem stems from a lack of education. I think these communities.
Okay, I want to pause it here. What exactly is it when they say the lack of education? Is it like education about the world, education about how to have a successful family? What is it? Education about going to college and what you want to study? Education about what it's like to be an adult? I think we have to dig into what it is that the Black community needs more education on, because I think that will help fill in the gaps and bridge the gaps in order to allow the Black community to be more successful and get out of this culture of ghetto behavior and negative stereotypes and people not wanting to deal with certain people in the Black community because of how they act.
Don't have. I don't think a lot of them have the proper education or learning from previous to realize what will lead them to a more successful future. I think that if we funded more education in these systems, then these men wouldn't be so focused on stuff like gang violence to get protection or money or
you have a
other
great
stuff like that, and then end up in prison and then end up with their child having a single mother.
Fair enough. So
Sorry, I didn't.
no, it's great. So there's a lot of examples that there's some merit to your argument, but it's more about the quality of education than the amount of money we spend on it.
Yeah.
Such as, that's why I'm a big proponent of school choice and educational vouchers and opposing the teacher unions. But the core is this, is that the number one predictor for a kid of any skin color, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, is whether or not dad is around.
Right.
And I look as an outsider, albeit, at current black culture, right? From the athletes to the rap music to the music, I don't see the nuclear family elevated, nor is it an internal black cultural expectation. Now, I will ask some of the white individuals here in this audience, okay? If you guys got pregnant and all of a sudden you didn't even know who the father was around, how would your parents react? Not great, right? Yes?
I'm going to pause it here and then we're actually going to move off of this clip. I do think it is important to kind of talk about what he is saying a little bit further. So I don't think in the Black community there is this acceptance of women getting pregnant when they are unmarried and all of that stuff, because your mother will freak out. She will not be happy, right? But they move forward and you have a kid and you raise it, right? Either your mother is going to help you raise the kid or she's not going to be involved, that sort of thing. So I think there is this frustration or this anger that you allow this to happen and all of that stuff. And so I don't think Black moms are just celebrating or super happy when their young teenage daughter, unmarried daughter gets pregnant, but they do try to do the best to move forward, raise a kid. And if you're already in poverty or you don't have a dad around, like from the girl who got pregnant, if her dad is not around and then the father of the child is not around, you have this family of women who are trying to raise that child. If you are in a middle income or low income situation, that makes the situation of raising a child a little bit difficult. And I think it becomes normalized in a sense, but I don't know if it's just celebration and cheering every time that you find out that a teenager or a unwed mother is pregnant. I think it's just that initial shock and that disappointment, and then we just find a way to move through it. Okay, moving on to the next clip. This is on a gay conservative.
A gay conservative, and I just want to ask you, what do you have to say for people like me who kind of feel like, I guess, it's kind of hard for gay conservatives because there's not a lot of us. So, like, what do you have to say to other gay people who need to realize, like, they do have a choice?
Yeah, first of all,
okay, I want to pause it here because it is really brave of this kid to come on camera and say, hey, I'm gay, I'm conservative, because those are two things that people are going to bash you for being gay. Obviously, I think you should be more accepting of gay. Like, it doesn't really matter who you sleep with, right? And then, obviously, being a conservative is a really big, hot topic right now. So it is impressive that these kids are willing to come on camera knowing that this is going to be filmed and all of that stuff and be vulnerable and have these conversations. And that really speaks to the influence of what Charlie Kirk is doing and the impact that he is having on kids who are participating in these debates and discussions.
Welcome to the conservative movement. I don't think you should introduce yourself just based on your sexual
No,
attractions.
I agree. I like
because that's not who you are.
I like to be thought of as a person, and
For sure, you are a complete human being, and I'm sure you treat people well, and you're studying something. So I want to get away with this idea that you're gay anything. I just think that we have gone a long way in the negative direction in this country, where we act as if the most important part of your identity is what you do in the bedroom. It doesn't mean that much to me, but if you ask from a perspective as a Christian, I don't agree with that lifestyle. But politics is about addition and multiplication. I imagine you agree with a lot of what we talk about.
Absolutely.
Right? Strong borders, strong country, and for that, we welcome you into the conservative movement.
thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna probably say something that I shouldn't, and so I want to compare this because I think that his answer here is really good because he said, hey, it doesn't matter if you're gay, you don't need to introduce yourself by your sexuality, right? And then he's also saying, that doesn't matter, but then he's saying if you're asking me based on my principles, I don't agree with that lifestyle. And so he's really nice about saying it, but he's very strong in what his principles are. And it made me think of the conversation that Candace Owens had with Don Lemon, where they had their interview, their debate, their discussion, whatever, and she was basically like, I think homosexuality is a sin and blah blah blah. And that was like a more heated and confrontational moment in their interview because obviously he was really offended by that and he wasn't expecting her to be that direct and say it to his face and all of that stuff. So I think that was a little bit of a weird moment, but I really like how Charlie handled it in this moment. Moving on, he is going to talk about splitting the check.
Women want to be taken care of. I know this is like super provocative, but like deep down, they want a man to be able to provide for them financially.
Should a man pay on the first date?
100%. Like, what kind of a wuss beta male is splitting the check? But like, who are you? It's like, I'm just sorry. It's so. I would go into debt and like scrub dishes before a woman paid for it.
I split the check quite a lot.
So I'm sorry. I don't mean to offend you. You guys are great. That's incomprehensible to me. I think that's
to me. I thought it was a great financial decision.
So from your prism, I totally get that, and like you have really good financial discipline. I'm sorry, like I would be so humiliated if I find that to be like the greatest beta male like humiliation.
To save money?
To like the idea that a woman that you're trying to court. Now, if it's like a friend thing
as a first date, you don't even know if she's like
matter.
The quality.
It does not matter. I'm sorry. By the way, that money you save is not worth the honor that you compromise.
It is such a big deal.
It's a massive deal.
So I really love that clip because one, you don't really need to split the check. And again, if she wants to pay, you can let her to make her feel good about herself, but you should be able to cover the check because you want to be able to do that for your wife, right? So I definitely agree with that. And I do like how the guy was like, oh, I'm saving money. And it's like, well, yes, you're saving money, but you're doing it because you're being cheap and you don't think that a woman is worth the investment, especially if you are pursuing her. Like, obviously, she is going to judge you and make her assessment of you on whether or not she wants to marry you based on how you are treating her. And then also, too, what kind of women are you picking that you think they may not be worth the check or whatever, right? So are you just dating women who you think are going to sleep with you, or are you actually choosing good quality women that you want to be your wife, that you want to spend the money on to take care of that woman and to provide and all of that stuff? And so I think that this is a much deeper conversation, but we can move on from there. Next, let's show this ice hat snatch.
And now I'm not.
What's your hat say?
ICE.
What is that sample?
Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement. Hey, don't touch it.
What are you doing?
Okay, I'm pausing it because I really like how, I think when she came around, the guy just gonna go for her, and then he was like, hey, no, leave it, and then he answered a question, and then she basically assaulted him because she touched his hat, and he's like, no, leave her alone. So I like that he is taking all of this abuse and stuff like that in these public forums and all of that stuff, and he's being really nice and considerate of the people that he is talking to, because he understands how emotionally charged some of these conversations may be, and especially these are young adults who may not be thinking properly or fully formed in their thoughts and all of that stuff, so they can't emotionally regulate their feelings. So that's why you see some of these teenagers, these kids coming up to the mic to talk to him, and they are like yelling and shouting and so upset at what he is saying. And so I think he does a good job of handling those types of moments.
Gotta let her have her emotions, man. Just listen.
Have a nice day. Let's have a conversation.
She was wrong for that. But you gotta show yourself. If you really love her, let her go.
No, 100%, guys. I'm not gonna press. Thank you. See, I'm not gonna. No, that's okay.
I got a question.
Sure. What was your name again? I'm sorry.
I don't think I told you. My name's Mercury.
Nice to meet you. Well, nice to re-meet you, I should say.
What do you hope to get out of this? Why are you here?
Okay, I've been asked that question a lot. First of all, that question should not even have to be asked, but when people stop talking, really bad stuff starts. When marriages stop talking, divorce happens. When church starts happening, they fall apart. When civilizations stop talking, civil war ensues. When you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to want to commit violence against that group. Whether it be the great genocide, the horrible genocides of the last 100 years, people stop talking with each other because they lose their humanity. I wish we could be here without having my hat thrown off and stuff, but what we as a culture have to get back to is being...
Obviously, this is a kind of sad comment because you think of what happened with Charlie Kirk, and yes, you do need to be able to have these discussions and these debates without resorting to violence. And if you cannot talk to people who disagree with you, or if you cannot even kind of in a positive and good way leave the conversation or just not continue the debate, you don't need to escalate it and get violent. And so I do think it is important that we remember that everyone is human and that we are open to having these conversations. And then if you can't have these conversations, that's totally fine, but you just don't resort to violence. You just go off and you do your thing and you come back at a later time if you are ready to have these conversations. Moving on, we're going to talk about rap artists.
Average rap artist that a black kid in the hood is listening to is glorifying marriage and family and saving your money.
That's what sells because it's a culture thing. It's not just within the black community.
I agree. No.
Okay, so he kind of rebutted what I was going to say, but whose culture are you speaking of? Because I'm pretty sure there's probably a difference between the black athletes and rappers and the white celebrities and the white musicians and how they handle their families. I do think that in both groups there are baby mamas and all of that stuff and this devaluation of the nuclear family, but I think that you see that more in the black community.
But hold on.
Everyone listens to it. It's not just isolated.
It's bad for everyone who listens to it. The point being is that black youth, as they are being raised, their role models are largely not glorifying staying with one woman, getting married, going to church. But if it's about culture, you're right. The internal black culture has collapsed the last 60 years. We're no longer elevating the family. We're no longer elevating staying with the person that you're with. So our contention here as conservatives is that the systemic racism stuff is a bunch of rubbish. Instead, it's systemic bad choices.
Do you feel that systemic racism isn't real?
So I want to pause it here and go back to something that he said a little bit earlier. He said that everyone listens to rap music, but I think at some point, for maybe white men and white boys more specifically, they grow out of listening to rap music, right? Whereas with the black community, we're always listening to rap music, even at older ages. And I think for some people, there are exceptions. Like there may be some older black men who are like, hey, I used to listen to hip hop and rap all the time. Now I don't. I listen to X, Y, and Z music instead. But I think that there may be more men and women and all of that stuff in the black community who listen to rap music even after a certain age, where with white people, if they do even listen to rap music, at some point they grow out of it. And so I think that's a difference here that's not kind of being talked about.
Of course not. What can I do that you can't do? Name it.
Okay.
No, seriously. What can I do that you can't do?
That's a slippery slope.
No, it's not, because back in 1940, you would have been able to answer that question. Well, Charlie, there's a bathroom over there that I can't go to. There's a major league team.
I can't walk into the grocery store and get the same looks that you do. I walked into Brookshire Brothers a couple of weeks ago when I was looked at like I was
That's an insanely hyper-paranoid way of living life. But that's not evidence, right?
It's a real example.
By the way, if I walk into...
So I want to speak to this because I don't like that there's just an acknowledgement of his experience, because I have a hearing loss, I have a deaf accent, and And everywhere I go, people react to how my voice sounds, and they're like looking at me trying to figure out why I sound like that and all of that stuff. And it annoys me. And there are times where I just don't kind of react to it, or I get really self-conscious. And so I can understand what he's saying here, where you're black, especially if you're darker than me and all of that stuff, right? And you walk into a space and people are just kind of looking at you and you don't really know why they're looking at you. That does make you self-conscious, and if that happens a lot, it can definitely be kind of draining and annoying to have to deal with that and always have to ignore stuff. So I absolutely understand where he's coming from with that, and I wish that there was a little bit more acknowledgement of that and understanding that that doesn't feel great when you have people who visibly treat you a different way. Like, you can observe, you can feel, and you can sense when someone doesn't like you or that they are just on guard about you. And I think that that is a very valid feeling to have, and it is a very valid experience that should be acknowledged. But I do agree that there is no systemic racism to where there's anything that a black person can't do that a white person can do, but the consequences of some things will be very different. So like, a white person can be speeding, get pulled over, get a ticket and go home. A black person, they could be speeding, get pulled over, and maybe go home, maybe not go home, that sort of thing. So yes, you can do the same thing that white people can do, but sometimes the consequences are very different. Okay, I think we are at another video on black culture, so just give me a second.
Because they don't have the same access to it because they've been f***ing written out of those laws.
But weren't Asian Americans written out of the laws in the 1940s and 50s?
No, because they are not black!
Oh, okay, so it's only black people that experienced the tough 20th century.
No, I'm talking about black people that were specifically written out of these laws.
Asian Americans were written out of laws in the 1940s.
I
We put
understand.
Asian Americans in internment camps.
I understand.
So it will activate the black community that saw a spike in the single motherhood rate.
Because they don't have the same access.
Yeah, I don't really understand the point of this one, so we can just skip it and go to the next one on black fathers.
Black fathers impregnate women, and they don't stay around with the women that they have impregnated.
Charlie Kirk, do you think that happens more in the black community compared to others?
It's threefold. Number one, we subsidize single motherhood. Number two, it's culture. It's accepted in the black community, and it shouldn't be.
Culture. Okay.
Don't take my word for it. Read Thomas Sowell's own book on how black culture allows single motherhood to continue into a nanny state type practice. 75% of black youth are raised without a father in the home. 75%. Is that a bigger problem or not a bigger problem than whiteness, white privilege, or white supremacy?
They should all be addressed, and they're all related.
Okay, how is a white person to blame? Wouldn't it be more like smarter to be like, hey, that this is not about systemic racism. Like, stop impregnating your women and abandoning them?
Okay, so I think this is a very valid take, and this goes back to that what I was saying about the percentages. 70% is closer to 47%, but I also don't know if he's talking about men who don't live in the home or if he's just talking about women not being married. And so I think he is right, because even Cardi B recently, she got a lot of backlash, and she's rich and she's famous, she is popular and all of that stuff, right? And even she is getting flack for having a baby out of wedlock and all of that stuff. So I think when she had her first child, she came out and said, hey, we got married before the baby was born, or something like that, because she was getting so much negative comments and opinions on the fact that she was pregnant and technically not married. And so I don't know that we celebrate it or we kind of applaud it happening, but I think we just kind of acknowledge it. You deal with the negative criticism and you kind of push through and you try to give a good life for your baby. And I think that it becomes normalized again. And I think it's about making choices as far as choosing better people to have children with, choosing to get married, and all of that stuff. And I don't think that it's kind of like accept it. I think we just kind of take it as it happens and move forward. And I think the context of how he's saying it and how I'm saying it is slightly different, but it does lead to the same thing. But I think the wording does matter here. Okay, moving on to the next clip where someone is saying, hey, Charlie Kirk is not racist.
Back in 2019, Charlie, and I want to give Charlie some credit here, okay? Back in 2019, Charlie Kirk helped a lot of young blacks get to the White House. He changed a lot of their lives. A lot of them never imagined going to the White House, and Charlie helped hundreds of young black.
Okay, I have a question about this. I have not heard this clip before, but I had it on my list. And so what does he mean when he says black people never imagine going to the White House? Because obviously I would imagine you can go there untoured. Or does he mean in this official social commentary, political commentary type of way, like what Charlie Kirk is doing, what Candace Owens is doing? Does he mean going to the White House in that capacity where you may be interacting with the president or the staff in a slightly different way than a tourist? I'm not 100% sure what he means, but I think that matters because, again, you can go to the White House on a tour.
Boys and girls go to the White House. Charlie, thank you for that.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, man.
So for people who want to call Charlie a racist, kiss my black ass. Excuse my language. Charlie Kirk is not a racist.
I love this guy. I'll tell you. And, by the way, I have some New York Times reporters for you to talk to.
I'll talk to them.
No, yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the clip regarding gay partners.
5. The second part is Leviticus 19. The first part is Deuteronomy 6:3-5. The second part is Leviticus 19. So you love God. So you must love his law. How do you love somebody?
Here we go, folks.
You love them by telling them the truth, not by confirming or affirming their sin. And it says, by the way, Miss Rachel, you might want to crack open that Bible of yours. In a lesser referenced part of the same part of Scripture is in Leviticus 18, is that thou shalt lay with another man shall be stoned to death. Just saying. So, Miss Rachel, you quote Leviticus 19, love your neighbor as yourself. The chapter before affirms God's perfect law when it comes to sexual matters.
Okay, so I want to pause it here because, again, this clip is relevant because Stephen King, if I'm saying his first name correctly, I'm not sure if it's Stephen or Stephen King, but anyway, he is getting canceled right now because he basically talked about this clip maybe out of context where he was saying that Charlie Kirk said that we should stone the gays, and what he's pointing out here, this person is saying, hey, you need to love whatever, right? And he's saying, well, actually, you're cherry picking. There is this verse that kind of contradicts what you're saying, and so you can't have it both ways is what he is saying. And so he's just pointing out the hypocrisy and basically choosing certain parts of the Bible to follow or to use as your defense in whatever you're arguing. So we don't have to go into that too much, but I do want to move on to the next clip, which is about black pilots.
I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am. That's not what I believe. That's not what I believe. But what it does is it makes us worse versions of ourselves, Megan. That's the whole point of what I was saying, is that I now look at everything through a hyper-racialized diversity quota lens because of their massive insistence to try to hit these ridiculous racial hiring quotas. Of course, I believe anybody of any skin color can become a qualified pilot. That has never been my contention. I mean, it's silly. It's bigoted to think otherwise, right?
Okay, so for this clip, I couldn't find it in its full context to understand exactly what he was saying before and how this conversation even came up. So basically what he is saying, and I talked about this in my other video on his Jubilee debate, where basically he is saying that now because of DEI, he's questioning things that he would not have questioned before. And so I think that context matters because people are taking this comment, and he's probably kind of being sarcastic in the part of the clip where he says what he said about the black pilot. So I think when he says it in this way and how you hear it in the clip, you're not really understanding that he's being sarcastic or he's voicing something that he normally would not say. Like, it's like when you go too far and you say what you're not supposed to say, and so he's pushing the boundaries on that conversation and saying, hey, when you make these decisions, these policies, this is what it actually leads to, and if you don't like people saying that, then you obviously need to address the policy, in my opinion. Moving on to his clip on the Second Amendment.
Having an armed citizenry comes with a price.
We convince them that it's important to have the right to defend ourselves and all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. So I'm a big Second Amendment fan.
I'm going to pause it here because this clip is very relevant because this one has been circulating in terms of kind of justifying what happened to Charlie Kirk, and this clip is also being taken out of context.
But I think most politicians are cowards when it comes to defending why we have a Second Amendment. This is why I would not be a good politician. Or maybe I would, I don't know. But because I actually speak my mind. The Second Amendment is not about hunting. I love hunting. The Second Amendment is not even about personal defense. That is important. The Second Amendment is there, God forbid, so that you can defend yourself against a tyrannical government.
Come on.
Governments tend to get tyrannical, in that if people need an ability to protect themselves and their communities and their families. Now, we must also be real. We must be honest with the population. Having an armed citizenry comes with a price. And that is part of liberty. Driving comes with a price. 50,000 people die on the road every year. That's a price. You get rid of driving, you'd have 50,000 less auto fatalities.
I want to pause it here because I really like that he compares it to driving, which is something that people do every day, and they may not necessarily think when they're talking about something like guns, because you kind of have the choice to buy guns. But again, he said this goes back to you need to have this right in case you have to defend yourself from the government who is doing things that they're not supposed to in a very extreme and unjust way. You need to be able to defend yourself like what people did when they first came to America. They were fighting against the people back in England and all of that stuff.
We have decided that the benefit of driving, speed, accessibility, mobility, having products, services, is worth the cost of 50,000 people dying on the road. Wow. So we need to be very clear that you're not going to get gun deaths to zero. It will not happen. Right. You can significantly reduce them through having more fathers in the home, yes, by having more armed guards in front of schools. Yes. We should have an honest and clear reductionist view of gun violence, but we should not have a utopian one. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year, so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights.
So I'm going to pause it here and we can move off of this clip, but what people are saying is, how would Charlie Kirk feel about this situation given everything that's happened? And I think we can kind of point to his response when in the Jubilee debate, the girl's like, well, you know, what if your daughter is raped and she doesn't want to have the baby, or she's pregnant, whatever, and then he said that baby would be born. And so from that answer, he is a man who sticks by his principles, so I think that he would be okay with this happening, as sad and tragic as it is, as long as it doesn't change anything with the Second Amendment. I think that he would be upset with the Second Amendment being kind of taken away, or you can't have guns anymore, whatever, because he sacrificed his life so that we could have the Second Amendment. So I think that would be his answer. I'm not sure what you guys think about that, but definitely let me know in the comment section. Moving on to abortion.
First of all, babies are It's wrong to murder a baby.
You're not murdering a baby. It's
okay.
not a baby.
What is it then?
It is an embryo.
What species is the baby in the womb?
It's a human, but
therefore
it's
they should have human rights.
No, I do not agree.
Oh, so small humans, no human rights. Grown humans, human rights.
It's not a small human. It's an embryo.
It has a heartbeat. It has brain
waves. That does not make it a child.
The excuses given for abortion is dehumanization. Oh, it's just an embryo. Guys, that's just using different language to justify the massacre of something smaller than you. Yeah.
If I were to be pregnant right now and forced to have a baby, that would ruin my life. If I just happened to be pregnant.
Oh, you don't happen to get pregnant. It's not like getting COVID.
I know how
it
works.
You don't get the flu.
I know.
How about this? You take responsibility for your orgasms and stop eliminating people smaller than you.
He snapped with that because obviously you have a choice in whether or not you have sex, and so you have to deal with the consequences. When people were having sex for that purpose of having a baby, these were very different conversations, but now it's kind of recreational and all of that stuff, and so people are kind of separating the two, recreational sex with having a baby, and making it seem like these are two different disconnected things when it's all one and the same. And so I really like that he is advocating for not having abortion in this way, and we can continue playing the clip.
You're saying I should carry a baby and ruin my collegiate life.
How about this? Instead of saying ruin, first of all, babies are a blessing. Stop talking at them as if they're some sort of annoyance.
I will have to drop out of college.
Number two, you play certain games, you win certain prizes. If you're going to go have sex...
So you're saying I should drop out of college to support my child instead of supporting my life?
I'm saying if you're going to engage in coitus, in the practice of having children, you might end up with a baby. So know that. And guess what? You don't need to have sex before you get married. It's not like showering. It's not like eating.
Are you married?
Yes, with 2 beautiful children.
Wow.
Like, what does whether or not he's married have to do with anything? I think she's going to say, well, are you having sex or are you not having sex? But again, his answer was on point in this clip. Moving on, the next one is a anti-gay clip. And that title may be a little misleading.
By way of child drag queen shows and... Oh, excuse me. Don't show off.
I'm going to continue from here because this is a long video.
That's probably where you saved it. You got to like push double tap and then go over.
Right now, there is a push by the left to normalize pedophilia by way of child drag queen shows and rebranding pedophiles as minor attracted persons. 5 years from now, will you be promoting child drag queen shows? Will child abuse become part of the conservative platform?
Boy, that's a slippery slope fallacy if I've ever seen one. First of all, I've never invited a drag queen to come to any Turning Point USA event. I was at Politicon, and an individual by the name of Lady Maga came up, and I took a picture, and she walked away. Secondly, let me ask you a question. Are you a Trump supporter?
Yes, sir.
So are you a proud Trump supporter?
Of course.
So are you sickened that he had a gay man speak at his convention?
Yes.
Then you're not a Trump supporter, my friend. Thank you very much.
Oh, wow.
Let me ask you another question. Should he return the money of Peter Thiel, an openly gay man who supports his campaign?
No, if it helps him strategically,
okay.
Sure he can.
Should he stop talking to Tammy Bruce, who's an open lesbian that's a Fox News contributor?
If it's affecting his ideas, then probably, yeah.
Okay, so you say you're a Trump supporter, yet you have all these issues and these disagreements with him. Let me be very clear about my position. My personal position. I'm a Christian first and foremost, then an American, then a constitutionalist, then a conservative. In that order. I believe marriage, biblically, if we want to have a biblical and theological discussion, as articulated in the greatest book ever to exist in the history of the world, the Holy Bible. Marriage in the Holy Bible is one man, one woman. I also do not believe in the sort of rhetoric that some people engage in, that all of a sudden that they say there's no place for gay people in the conservative movement. I do not believe that. And let me ask you a question. Can I ask you a question then?
Sure, go for it.
So, the American family, liberty, freedom, the Constitution, our history, veterans, that's what we're conserving. I'll get to you later, though, don't worry. So let me ask you a question. If you had your way, what would you do with gay people in America?
I'm going to pause it here because I want to respond to this. I really like that he's advocating and he's calling this guy out and he's saying like, hey, are you really against gay people? And then he's saying, well, hey, this is not in line with, what we believe. So he's kind of pointing out that this guy is doing his own thing and it's kind of a little bit more extreme than what they actually believe. And so I really like that he's just saying like, hey, these are my values, but I don't believe in shunning these people because you disagree with whatever they're doing and all of that stuff, right? Like he doesn't agree that you should be gay, but he's also not out to hurt you or hate you or make your life super difficult just because you are gay, right? He's going to want to have this discussion, kind of just talk about the differences and see if you guys can find common ground.
America.
What would I do with them?
Because they're not allowed in the conservative movement, so would you just kick them out anytime they show up at a Republican Party? If you were in charge, like what would you say? You can't be part of the Republican Party.
If somebody is advocating for being openly homosexual, yeah, they should not be part of the conservative movement.
So I just want to go through the list. Guy Benson, no place in the conservative movement. Dave Rubin, no place in the conservative movement. Peter Thiel, no place in the conservative movement. So that just to go down the list.
If they are supporting open homosexuality.
So I'm going to ask a very respectful question, as respectfully as I can. What does what they do in their private life concern you so much that you have to go up in front of a crowd? And
it is against God. That is
so. Let me ask you a question.
Are you a Christian or not?
Do we live in a theocracy? Yes or no? No. Do we live in a theocracy?
You said you're a Christian.
I am a Christian. And do you know what? And guess what? I will say this. Part of being a Christian is appropriately interpreting what the theological says for the individual, but also means to be long-suffering and patient and loving and kind. Jesus Christ talked to all people. Jesus Christ went and did his ministry through Judea and Samaria, and he had dinner with tax collectors, and he had dinner with prostitutes, and he did his ministry in every part of the Mediterranean. What it means to be a Christian, my friend, is to be open-minded but firm in your beliefs, so you can have that belief. But if you say there's something inherently wrong with communicating or associating just because they make different personal decisions than you, sir, are not a conservative. Thanks for being here tonight.
Okay, so I really love that because, again, he's saying I have these strong principles, but I'm open-minded and I'm going to stick to my principles. And he's kind of welcoming everyone who wants to have this open discussion, who wants to live in peace and all of that stuff. And so I think this was a really powerful clip here because it shows that he's not this person who is only looking out for himself and people who look like him as far as white people. He is really advocating for everyone and truly just wants to have an open discussion. Moving on to the next clip, blacks were better off.
Actually better in the 1940s. It was bad, it was evil, but what happened? Something changed. They committed less crimes.
Maybe they were afraid. I mean, 4,000 black men, women, and children were killed in violent lynch mobs.
That's your explanation, but I guess
racial terror permeated American culture for hundreds of years.
Black America is worse than it has been
that
in the last
affected
80 years.
The generational psyche of an entire group of people?
No, I'm sure.
Oh, okay, I get what she's saying. So I reacted to this in the Jubilee clip, and I was saying that the way that she answered his thing about what changed, why are people more violent now compared to back then, and so she said racial terror, and so I took that to mean as her saying, well, people are too scared to commit crimes, because he was asking, why are people committing more crimes, why are they committing more murders, and her answer was racial terror, and so I took that to mean her saying they were too scared to commit crimes, like I just said, but I think the deeper thing of what she's saying here is that because of racial terror, these people were black people were terrified and all of that stuff, that affected them mentally and psychologically to where they are now doing things that they would not have done if they didn't live through that terror. And so I think in that lens that makes sense what she's saying. So yeah, I'll just leave it there. I think that makes sense. But this was another moment where he was getting a lot of flack because you could see the people reacting when he gave out those statistics and all of that stuff, and he's really just trying to get to the root of why crimes are being committed in the black community, why murder is being committed. She gives a good answer in saying that the trauma that they went through affected black people psychologically into where now we're seeing the effects of that. So I can definitely agree with that now that I'm better understanding what she said. And that points to the video I did on the Dr. Joy DeGruy interview that she had with Vault Powers. And basically she's talking about generational trauma. She's talking about the trauma that came from slavery and all of that stuff. And so now that I better understand what she's saying, I can agree with what she said. So moving on, black women.
You really have to wonder. In fact, you know, if we would have said 3 weeks ago, Blake, if we would have said that Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson were affirmative action picks, we would have been called the racist.
Okay, I'm going to pause it here because I didn't like that he did that, and so his energy in this clip is a little bit weird compared to what I was seeing at the debates. And I talked about this in the video I did, maybe my second Charlie Kirk video, where I was reacting to kind of like the Don Lemon live stream, and there are some clips where his energy is very different, and when he's in the debates, he seems kind of, I guess, more open-minded, and he's more thoughtful in his answers. But with this clip, you can kind of see where it seemed a little bit more mocking and just kind of mean-spirited, but I don't know if this is in the full context because I don't even know what was said before this that is making them have this conversation. And I did find another video where he kind of talks about it, but I don't know if this is before this clip or if it's from later when he kind of had to explain himself. So we can continue.
Oh, they're coming out and they're saying it for us. They're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously.
Okay, so I want to pause here because this part of the clip also is getting a lot of reaction because he's saying that you do not have the brain processing power. And what I've seen quoted is that he is saying black women do not have the brain processing power. Like he's speaking to all black women. He's speaking to these specific 2 or 3 women. That's still bad. And I'm wanting to kind of see the fuller context of what he's saying here, but we can continue.
You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. Play cut 52.
be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken.
So I want to pause it here because she didn't actively steal a white person's slot. It's not like she cut in front of him in the interview process or anything like that. It's other people making these decisions and she's benefiting from it, I guess, if you want to follow that train of thought. But I don't like the idea of saying that she stole it because she doesn't even know who the white person is that could have had this position, right? So I don't like that framing.
Somewhat seriously, play cut 52.
But I rise today as a clear recipient of affirmative action, and particularly in higher education. I may have been admitted on affirmative action, both in terms of being a woman and a woman of color, but I can declare that I did not graduate on affirmative action. This is my personal story.
I hear...
Okay, so I want to pause it there because there's two interesting things that she said. One, she said, I think I'm clearly here, or it's clear that I'm here on affirmative action. So she is signaling like, hey, I'm only here because of affirmative action. But me personally, I would never say, hey, I got a job because of affirmative action. I would say, hey, I got the job because I worked for it and I did really well in the interview process. So I don't like that she's saying that, but I also don't know if she is forced to or made to say this in order to prop up and promote affirmative action. So that is a little bit weird. I don't know what's happening here, but this is not how I would talk about myself if I'm talking about the job that I am working.
Because of action affirmative. She can't even say that. We know. It's very obvious to us that you were not smart enough to be able to get in on your own. I couldn't make it on my own, so I needed to take opportunities from someone more deserving. You know, this is how arrogant Joy Reid and Ketanji Brown Jackson and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee are. They're so narcissistic, they think this is persuasive. They think we're like, oh, of course, that's why we need affirmative action.
So I think it's his comments here that is making me think that this may have been something that was kind of planned or kind of, I don't know, made to happen in order to prop up affirmative action, because why would you realistically say something like this?
Because you have impressed us with your brilliance. Of course. Oh no, imagine the world without Joy Reid. Imagine the world without Sheila Jackson Lee or Michelle Obama or Ketanji Brown Jackson. They think this is persuasive. They think as they kind of now reveal that I'm only here because of anti-white, anti-Asian forced discrimination policies.
Okay, we can pause it here and move on to my next clip. This is on Love and Lies.
Christ our Lord.
I have a sign here. True Christians love everyone. Would you say you believe in this sign?
Yes, but define love.
Define love? It's a respect. You respect someone enough to not judge them, to not hate them for what they're doing, no matter what it is.
Do you lie to people you love?
Do I lie to people I love? Not often enough. And I don't lie about...
Should we, in the ideal, when you love somebody, should you lie to them?
Depends on the lie. So, let me give an example.
I think that is a good answer. It depends on the lie. Like, you do want to not hurt people's feelings, especially if you think that it's something very minor and something that won't kind of like bite you in the butt later, so to speak.
Here. Say, do you have a sibling? Say you have a sibling and they have a dress on and it is just ugly. The ugliest thing you've ever seen. Are you going to tell them that dress is ugly, you need to change it, you horrible person?
Yes. In fact, I'll do it in a way that is filled with love, but I love my sister so much that if I feel if she's going to leave the house and be made fun of, I won't let her do that, because that's what love is all about. You see, love is not...
Are you going to make her feel ugly saying that?
Well, no, in fact...
How would you say it to make them not feel ugly?
I would say, listen, I care a lot about you. I think that maybe you should change that outfit, or let's see what other outfits you might have.
What if she's like, no, I spent a lot on this, I'm really proud, I think this looks great. Are you going to say that what she thinks look great doesn't look great to you?
I would say, look, you can obviously wear whatever you want, but I want to caution you that if you wear that dress out in public, it might not be received the way you think it would be received. I would be remiss not to say that if I actually loved my sister. I'd be remiss, because love is not affirmation. Love is not confirmation. Love is making sure that you care so much about the other that you're willing to challenge and point out flaws when you see them and have the courage to articulate it. That's what love is.
Okay, I'm going to pause it here because this is super interesting because I've seen clips on Instagram where there are women who are doing pranks and they have horrible makeup on and they're in the car, their face is away from the person getting in, they turn and they're just talking, and obviously the person is supposed to react to the makeup and either they say something or they don't, and this is just the exact situation that this person is talking about. And you have situations where people are so polite that they don't want to say anything, knowing that other people are going to look at that person crazy, and so you do have that happening. But then you also have people who are very rude about it and very direct, I would say, where they're like, hey, your makeup doesn't look good, you need to take that off and all of that stuff. So you do have to find a balance to say that in a way with love that doesn't embarrass the person, but I always think that you should speak up, especially if you think something is wrong, or if you think something doesn't look good, or if you think something might not be received well, because if you're not reacting well to it, you know that other people might have the same reaction as you. And obviously if it's something that's normal or something that is not that big of a deal, I think it depends, but also it depends on what it is. Like if you see someone committing a crime or something like that, you don't just be polite and not say anything. You kind of should step up and say something without endangering yourself or notify someone or something like that. And so I think it really depends. Obviously we're talking about non-violent situations right now, and so I think it does truly depend on what the thing is, but if you know that other people are going to react like you and you have a negative reaction, you should probably say something. And now is the second clip on KBJ, and I think this is either him explaining before kind of why he has these feelings that he does, or he's explaining after the fact when he got backlash from the clip that we played 2 clips ago.
Ketanji Brown Jackson is what your country looks like on critical race theory. KBJ is your country on CRT. KBJ, Ketanji Brown Jackson, is an embodiment of the tyranny that we currently live under. The answers from KBJ, outside of the fact that she won't answer the very simple ones, such as what is a woman, reveal a distaste for our structure. So she wants to be the first ever black woman on the Supreme Court, yet she won't even admit that she's a woman. What do you get when you start to platform and implement critical race theory into every single corner of American society, in your corporations, in your schools? Your children and your grandchildren are going to have to take orders from people like her. And what's amazing is that she kind of has an attitude too. You look carefully at some of those videos, she kind of just, she's like, what? Why are you asking me such a question, Senator? She feels entitled to this position. Why wouldn't she? It's not like she got this position based on her qualifications.
Okay, so I find that to be a super interesting clip. Really, the only thing that I agree with there is not being able to define what a woman is. In this position on the Supreme Court, you should absolutely be able to do that. The other stuff I don't really know too much about because I haven't seen those clips myself to make a fair assessment. I do agree that she should be able to answer simple questions, but I don't know if that fully explains everything that he's saying as far as this video and the other clip that we played on him talking about black women. So moving on, this is the Prowling video.
Despite that, though, a certain video went very viral, and we got a couple questions on this.
So I'm going to pause it here. So basically, the question is just set up about some situation I think that happened in New York where a pregnant white woman, was basically renting a city bike. She paid for it, and then I guess she was kind of harassed or whatever by a group of black teenagers, something like that. And then it was, I guess, said that she was harassing them, and then it came out that they were actually harassing her. And so this question was on that situation, and then I'm going to fast forward so that we can get into his answer.
Okay, so this is somewhat of a complicated story, but it really isn't, okay? So there is a pregnant white woman who worked at a hospital who is going to go, basically in New York City, you're able to rent bikes. Okay, so you're able to rent bikes, and this was the last bike of its kind. Last bike there. So she goes to go rent the bike, and halfway through whatever altercation was brewing, there seemed to be a back and forth between a black man and her.
It might have been a group of black people, actually. And this video was seen over 40 million times. And the immediate reaction by the Twitterati and the immediate reaction by the social media jihadis is, oh my goodness, look at this white Karen who is in a racist way trying to say, this bike is mine, stay out of the way, black people, and basically bully her, weaponizing her white tears against black men. Seen 40 million times. Well, like so many of these race hoaxes, it turns out that this was a lie. And by the way, Twitter was calling out her name. In fact, one of the Twitterati said, she effing deserves. I hope you never have a moment of peace again. Again, this is a 4-month pregnant woman. Well, it turns out she actually paid for the bike. And something that is common in New York City is that young thugs will come up and actually, as you rent the bike, push the bike back in. Kind of as a way to troll you, as a way to be like, oh, you paid for it? Well, you lose all your money type thing. So this white woman gets complete.
Okay, so I want to pause it here. So how he's saying like, hey, you know, they're just trying to troll you. So this seems kind of like not necessarily harmless because it is annoying if you have to deal with that, but it doesn't seem like this is done in kind of like a threatening way. Again, I have not actually looked into the story to see 100% what the facts are, but this does sound like a typical Karen situation, and then he's obviously going to continue telling the story, but I don't know if this was a situation where her life was in danger or if it was just kids being kids.
Misrepresented. This is a pregnant woman equivalent of Nicholas Sandmann. She got suspended from her job because of this. This is Nicholas Sandmann 2.0. Now, were they trying to hijack her? Were these blacks trying to go rob her? Happening all the time in urban America. Prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact. It's happening more and more.
Okay, so I'm going to pause it here because this clip is pretty long. We're not going to actually watch the full clip. So there's kind of where he's making his assessment or judgment on what he thinks these kids are doing. Again, I haven't looked into this story, so I don't 100% know if that is true or not, but he is kind of, I guess, adding on to the situation here by saying, hey, you know, I don't know if they were going to rob her or anything like that. So I don't know what the true story is, and I did try to Google it. Let me just quickly Google it right now. Oh, okay, so I just looked it up and I remember hearing about this, and I think there may have been a controversy where basically two people were able to rent the same bike at different times. So the Bellevue Hospital employee who is branded a Karen on social media afterward rented the bike first, lawyer Justin Marino said in a statement to the Post Wednesday. He also provided 2 city bike receipts from May 12th, which were timestamps just minutes apart. And then, yeah, so this part, in blocking the QR code, this individual's arm was touching my client's pregnant stomach, a condition of which he had made them aware, he added. Throughout this time, and for the remainder of the video, roughly 5 individuals were telling her to get off the bike and heckling her. And so, obviously, I don't know all of the full details of this situation, but I thought this was a situation, from what I'm remembering, of them basically buying the same bike at the same time and having that kind of conflict. But I guess it just buy another bike. I don't understand why this has to be super complicated and why it has to escalate to this crazy situation. So that's what happens when you deal with one young adult and then people who want to, I guess, because there's certain situations where, yes, you need to not let people bully you and stand up for your rights or whatever, and there's other situations where it's just so minor and not worth it that you just need to let it go so that it doesn't escalate to something crazy. So that's just my 2 cents. I don't have all of the details, but we can go ahead and skip out of the rest of this clip. The next one is on Biden.
I am a product of teachers and an educational system that believed in providing the children with the full expanse of information that allowed them to then, and encouraged them to then reach their own conclusions and exercise critical thought in a way that was directly intended to nurture their leadership. I am fully aware that it is because of that approach that I stand before you as Vice President of the United States of America.
I know what you're thinking. We got to get Joe Biden out of the way so we can run up against Cammie. Oh my goodness, is she beatable? It's like Black Hillary on steroids. Is she black? I guess she says she's Caribbean or whatever. Doesn't matter. She is. She gives these speeches and it just has this aura of totalitarianism. My team says she's Indian and Caribbean. I'll tell you what, she would be a...
Okay, so I want to pause it here because here's where you're seeing kind of like that mocking language where he doesn't necessarily do that in his debates. And so I think there is a difference between how he is on his show and how he is when he's debating.
A lot easier to beat than Joe Biden. A lot. I mean, Joe Biden is a bumbling, dementia-filled Alzheimer's, corrupt tyrant who should honestly be put in prison and or given the death penalty for his crimes against America. But Kamala Harris, my goodness, there's something.
Okay, so this clip is getting somewhat of a traction because of him saying, hey, you know, we should give Biden the death penalty. And obviously with what happened to him, people are saying like, hey, you know, you're calling for violence basically. And I saw the comment section, a lot of people were saying, well, you know, he's talking about a legal process, putting him in jail, obviously being convicted of crime, and then having that happen through a legal process versus someone else going out and taking their own justice, revenge, whatever, right? Like there's no legal process. So I can understand the distinction, but I can also understand the hypocrisy when you say this violent act should happen regardless of how it happened, and then you have an actual violent act happening when it shouldn't have. And so I can see how both sides between Dems and Republicans are complicit in this game of inciting violence. Moving on, this next clip, I can't pronounce his name, but I think it's Cenk, and he goes on Uncensored and Piers Morgan, and so there was this moment where he is yelling at this guy Cenk. I think it's Cenk or Cenk, I'm not sure, but basically people are saying that this was a racial slur that he said, but I think he was actually addressing this guy and saying his name a certain way, so we can play that clip.
Stop!
You do not practice what you preach.
Charlie. All right, hold on. Last point.
You don't want to give him the attention.
So you can
here.
see everyone yelling at that guy there.
Quiet down. Last point.
I'm going to go back a little bit.
All right.
Oh, ridiculous. All right, behave, everyone. Jesus Christ.
Okay.
I practice what I preach.
Charlie.
You do not practice what you preach.
Charlie.
All right, hold on. Last point.
You don't want to give him the attention here.
Everyone,
35,000 donors across.
Okay, so we can move out of that one since we talked about that one, and we can move on to the next clips. Dad's not around.
As they're there to protect and serve and help us. And that.
I'm gonna restart
How is it the government's fault of why dads aren't around?
I mean, we could get into the whole, like, the rhetoric of crack babies and crack drug
got
dealers.
It. So, but isn't it a decision to take drugs?
Oh, no, 100%.
So, and it's a decision to commit crimes?
Yes.
Okay, so the government didn't do that to them. People decided to take drugs.
That's true. But do you feel like these populations or these communities have, in statistics, been overly populated by police officers?
Well, so just...
I don't get this argument, like, if people are making decisions to commit crime, I do acknowledge, yes, they're flooding drugs, and yes, they're allowing certain things to happen that force people to make these decisions, but you're also making decisions in these specific situations. But I don't understand how that has to do with over-policing, because you want police to catch people who are doing what they shouldn't be doing or committing crimes or just creating chaotic environments, like being too loud, like noise complaints, that sort of thing. So I don't understand what that has to do with over-policing in a sense, but I understand why they're saying that they're over-policing, because it can feel kind of unfair or chaotic when you have someone constantly watching you, whereas they're not watching other people the same way. So I totally get that, but at the same time, it's different if they're watching you and you're not doing anything at all, like you're just doing what you're supposed to be, versus them watching you because you're doing crazy stuff, if that makes sense. So I can understand both sides of the argument, but that is my 2 cents.
You seem like a really sweet person, so I don't want to try to be too intense. Is that cool?
Go ahead.
What percentage of America is black? 13%, right? What percentage of the murders in America are committed by black people?
I don't know the specific statistics.
Yes.
It's
50%.
It's 60%. So maybe when you do 60% of the killings and you're 13% of America, more cops should be around your neighborhoods.
But there's no cops there's not an equal number of cops in the white suburban neighborhoods
Because
in the
there's
same
not as much murder.
the same neighborhoods that are controlling they have cocaine in their houses, but it's not treated the same.
And this is okay, Gigi, because it really is flushing out our different worldviews. You look at cops as if they're there to catch you and get you. We look at cops as they're there to protect and serve and help us.
I guess that's fair. I think that that's fair, but he also just said that if you're committing more murders, then you need more cops, which would be there to prevent more murders, but also they would be arresting you too, if that makes sense. So I see both sides of it. I'm not really trying to play both sides of it here. I can see what he's saying, but also if you have more police, that does mean that more people will be arrested, but it also means that more crimes will be prevented. So we can just leave that there. And the last clip is on abortion.
Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, we do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. That is a direct quote. So my question is, knowing that abortion takes the lives of babies of all colors and ethnic backgrounds, but understanding it's the black genocide of today.
Right, it is.
Hands down. What have you discovered to be the most effective or creative way to combat the lies regarding this genocidal agenda?
I like you. She's great.
It is black genocide, and thank you for saying that out loud. I say that and the media loses their mind. But it disproportionately impacts the black community. Life is beautiful, and life begins at conception. And we are seeing disproportionate abortion clinics, Planned Parenthood clinics, and the founder was a eugenicist, period. The founder of Planned Parenthood was a eugenicist. Now, are the current leaders of it eugenicists? We don't know, but if you were trying to exterminate the black population, how would you do things any differently than what Planned Parenthood is doing right now? So how do we go back against it? We got to play offense. We got to explain the pro-life issue. We got to talk about why life is beautiful. And honestly, we also got to step up, those of us that are Christians and conservatives, with the resources, the charities, the services to make sure that we get rid of the myth of unwanted children. There is not an unwanted child in America. We just need to make sure people that are in crisis, that are pregnant, are able to find adoption services, find the services necessary. That's the way I lead on it. But honestly, I yield back to Malcolm X, who, number one, did call it a black genocide. And I don't agree with Malcolm X on everything, but you know what else? You know who he blamed? The white liberal. And he was right. This is a tyranny of the white liberal going after the black community. Let me just kind of ask you a question in closing here. What is your message to white liberals out there that are trying to push this in the black community?
I'm sorry. That if you don't do the research and if you don't understand, then shut up. Do the research. No, I'm serious.
Do the work.
Do the work. Understand why that over, I think it's 88% of Planned Parenthoods are strategically placed in black and minority neighborhoods. Why? Let's reverse engineer. Why is it like in the state of New York, there are more black babies being murdered in the womb than are alive? So the words of Margaret Sanger has turned out to be prophetic. And also, the abortion agenda is a multi-billion-dollar industry. There is money in dead baby parts. You can find it. It was found in food, cosmetics, everywhere.
Yeah.
So this is the facts. This is the truth.
Give it up for her. That's great.
So I really like his reaction to her. They said everything in that clip, so we don't need to recap it. So that was the last video. We've covered a lot of clips of Charlie Kirk. I'm not going to really recap anything, so let me know in the comment section what you guys think about these clips, what you think about Charlie Kirk in general. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.